Good evening. Welcome to this listening session brought to you by the members of the Wildlife Sound Recording Society. Tonight's session, we will be sharing some recordings, and I see we all have people here from the Northern Hemisphere, and I think the right sort of time zones. So today is, or was, International Day of the Forests. So that will be our theme. So we'll be listening to recordings made by our members in forests around the world. Forests, of course, I hasten, don't need to sort of point out, I suppose, are very important in the global ecology. Carbon sinks, they provide us with oxygen, provide us with water and all sorts of important things. And of course, they provide recordists with some fodder and keep recordists happy. So yes, without further ado, I think we'll get into our recordings for tonight. And the first recording that we have this evening is brought to us by Rob Bain. Rob, do you mind telling us about your recording, please?
Geez, I can't even remember what did I send you?
Oh, just give me a second, I'll let you know. Come on. Right, you sent us 230530, and give me a minute. Your notes would said a recording from the Amazon basin in Peru. But if I read this out, it negates you introducing the piece.
Okay, so I work in Peru quite a lot, usually in Lima, but Peru's second city is Arequipa to the south, and I run the business, so I can take time off if I want. And I found a conservation agency or organization in the Amazon basin. So this isn't on the Amazon itself, it's in the basin, which is absolutely huge. It was a big cat rewilding and research center. So there's no tourists, it's only interns and scientists and me. And I spent 6 delicious days in the mud in the Amazonian rainforest. And this is an example. I'm pretty sure it's the screaming piha. The screaming piha is an extraordinary bird. Extraordinary in terms of its volume, given the size of the bird. And it's actually worth looking up the bird on YouTube to see it vocalize. It's quite a display. So I'll leave it at that. And if anybody's got any questions, more than happy to answer. It was taken in, I think, May. I recorded May last year.
According to your notes, that is correct, yes. Right, people, here we go. So if everybody can please mute themselves, and then we take it from there. That sounded...
Just for good measure, we had some howler monkeys in the background in the distance.
Nothing wrong with that.
Super recording.
That was really nice, yes.
Yeah, so this is the little Sony PCM A10, which I use extensively, partly because of its size. I've got 4 of them that I deploy with PIP LOMs, the LOM Micro UCI. I just find it makes for quite a nice, portable, reasonably high quality. It's not high quality, but it's reasonable quality. They're simple to deploy. It's just getting the gain correct as usual. Takes a little bit of practice, especially with a bird like this, which is very, very vocal. Arguably, it's the iconic sound of the Amazon.
Yeah, I heard that when I was in Peru, Rob, and it really, really sort of overshadowed everything else in the forest at the time. Very spectacular, but a lovely sound.
Yeah, I was very pleased with that.
And
yeah, really nice. Quite nondescript, but I was just looking at it on Ecosia there. It's kind of not really like a little brown job of the that kind of region. Have you ever I think you've seen them, knocking around, or are they difficult to see in the...
They are. It's a small bird, and it's far easier to hear. I'm not a birder. My interest is audio, so I'm not too worried if I don't see the birds. But this is a very difficult bird to see, but not difficult to hear.
That's right. I never saw it at all, and even the guides with us said you never see it.
Yeah. I'm going back to the Amazon later this year to a different location. Again, I'm working in Peru. I'll be fascinated just to see how the soundscape, changes 1,000 kilometers from my previous location, and obviously at a different time of year.
Well, Rob, I don't think there's anything wrong with that quality of your recorder.
Thanks.
Yeah, like everything is what you do with it, isn't it? That's what matters.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm more interested in content and getting location correct, scoping locations, understanding habitats. I think once you reach a certain stage in the recording, certainly for me, when it becomes acceptable, it's other factors in the equation that are of more interest to me.
Certainly, yes. Well, thank you for that, Rob. Right, next up is a recording from Gareth Thomas, who unfortunately can't be with us this evening. He's run into some issues. But he has sent us a recording called Lakeside Cuckoo, recorded in... now, I'm going to have a rough night tonight. I cannot speak Welsh, but this was recorded, to my best pronunciation, Rheidol in Wales in April of 2004. Unfortunately, I don't know what sort of equipment Gareth was using. But yes, here we go, people. Have a listen to this. So there's your cuckoo, Frank.
Did I hear a tufted duck about a third of the way through that, or was I?
Was that the sort of bubbly type? 'Cause I
Yeah,
heard
was that a
some-
tufted? Was that a tufted duck?
I
Or...
don't know, but I did find it quite interesting.
Can you put it on again?
Yeah, just give us a second.
Yeah, but
It's
maybe
could have been
there.
could have been a female cuckoo. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
I don't think
didn't-
it was a female cuckoo, but yeah.
No.
I didn't hear that
I
bit.
think it's
All right.
roughly in this area, so we'll try that.
Possibly. Yeah, right there.
Is that
What's the verdict, Ian?
well? My tuft is usually grunt.
Okay.
Yeah,
The
that
female
sounds like
call
a
them?
male tufted
Mm.
duck to me.
Female's the grunt, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Some sort of purr, barky purr.
I don't
Yeah.
think it was a bubble call of a cuckoo.
No, it
No,
wasn't.
definitely
no.
wasn't. No.
No.
More little grebe like, I think the female cuckoo call.
Mm. I don't know what that was.
Right. And unfortunately, as I said, Gareth gave us very scant information. Right. Next up is my next bit of punishment for the evening. And if everybody, any Welsh-speaking people out there thought my Welsh was bad, well, now we're moving on to Polish. At least Welsh use sort of the general 24 Roman letters for the alphabet, or 26 rather, and just pronounce them weirdly. Whereas the Polish add all sorts of other interesting things to their alphabet. So this is from one of our visually impaired members, Isabella. I'm going to mangle this, so I do apologize, Isabella, if you're listening. But from what I can gather from a Polish colleague of mine, it's something along the lines of Wuzik. And the first one we have here was recorded in, she has it down here as flooded forest, dawn in the Bibrza River Valley in Poland in May. So we will listen to that. Right, that was really good. And if anybody's interested, Isabella was kind enough to send us a species list, which by the sound of it is in order of appearance.
So what was that? What was that very strange boink boink or whatever that appeared about halfway through before the cranes?
Well, just go through the whole list and then we'll
Okay.
see if we can find it from that.
Right.
I thought it'd be a
say
crake.
spotted crake. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Her
Oh,
species
it's a
list.
crake. Yeah.
Spotted crake.
So there were sedge warbler, garden warbler, common wren, common cuckoo, wood pigeon, great spotted woodpecker drumming, chaffinch, willow warbler, the spotted crake, and of course the common cranes.
Isn't that interesting? All to be found in Britain, if you knew where to find them, but not necessarily making the sound at the same place.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be it's Hans did quite well with the pronunciation. I liked it because my wife's from Poland, so I sympathise with your struggles to.
Yeah, like I said, my colleague started telling me, I think it's the L with the sort of reverse slash type thing through it, and he said, well, that's basically pronounced like a W.
Yeah, it's like W. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Isabella Dujik, and it's Biebrza National Park. It's a place I'd love to go to. Actually, I haven't had the chance yet, so really good.
The real tongue twister is this next one, because there we've got the old L, W, and then a proper W as well, and then a Z with a reverse accent. So, yeah.
This is Biovitsa, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, right. So,
yeah, Elevator, yeah.
So, our next recording then is from that forest.
Coward.
Biowisha primeval forest, recorded in May. So let us have a listen to that rather than my atrocious Polish. Yes, that was once again, very busy soundscape, wasn't it? And I can offer it a species list once again for everybody who's interested in it.
Yes, please.
Right, song thrush, common blackbird, collared flycatcher, common cuckoo, great spotted woodpecker tapping, and a distant European robin. So she misses out on the wood warbler in there.
I say, from my experience up in that, well, I haven't been to Poland yet, but wood warblers are pretty common. So yeah, that was.
And it is very much that sort of dropping, well, not dropping coin.
Well, and also And the pew, 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 pew as well. That's the wood warbler as well.
Okay.
So it's the spinning coin and then or dropping
spinning
coin.
Coin, yeah, that sounds a bit more like it.
Yeah. And then the pew, 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 pew is also a wood warbler.
Okay, right.
So I went to Poland on a WSRS trip many years ago. We was due to go to Białowieża forest, but they wouldn't let us in because that was a time when we had foot and mouth in England. And they pulled rank on us and said, no, we're not allowed to go in because we might have foot and mouth. Despite going all through the trays and sprays and things at the airport and getting everything through, they just wouldn't let us in. But there were some very nice forests and recording places all around the area. That's very nice. So we weren't too
I think Białowieża is right in the border with Belarus. So
That's
you
correct.
might have a few problems possibly.
You would
getting
now,
there,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
No, you can still visit. I went recently, and in
Oh,
fact,
did you? Good.
now is an absolutely perfect time to visit. Well, not this time of year, but there's a tour company called Wild Poland who are completely set up for recordists like ourselves. They understand exactly what we need and can cater for them. But because of the war in Ukraine, their business has been absolutely decimated, as has much of the tourist industry in eastern Poland. So they're offering absolutely incredible packages, incredible rates. If anybody's interested at the moment, this is the largest primeval forest left in Europe.
What's it called, Rob? Wild Poland?
Wild Poland, yeah.
Yeah.
They're really nice guys, and as I say, totally understand what we do and fully can cater for sound recordists.
Oh, that's good to know. Thank you very much for that.
Białowieża
Rob?
is somewhere I've had a lifetime's ambition to visit. I've heard all these fantastic stories, but I've never actually got there. But that recordist, Isabella, if it's the same person, is quite a remarkable person. She's an academic. She's totally blind. She does a lot of work in Białowieża forest. And if she's going in parts of the forest that she doesn't really know, her mother takes her with her and holds her hand. There's a great documentary. I don't know if anybody else saw it, whether it was posted on this group or the Nature Recordist group. I'll see if I can dig it out and circulate it again. But she's quite a remarkable person.
Yes, indeed. Right. And then next up, she takes us literally to the other side of the world with her next recording, which is this one here. Right. So, as I mentioned, that is literally the other side of the world. That was recorded in November in the rainforest, or on the banks of the Tambopata River in Peru. Our species list there included tropical kingbird, white-browed antbird, russet-backed oropendola, chestnut-fronted macaw, mealy parrot, mustached wren, thrush-like wren, Guyanan warbling antbird, blue-throated piping guan, yellow-crowned Amazon parrot, razor-billed curassow, and white-tipped dove. Which is which, I can't tell you.
Yeah, I knew them all.
Yeah, I thought as much, Dave, but
Oh, dear.
I
That's a
just
good list, isn't it?
I just read them out for everybody else's benefit, just in case you missed one.
That was a good list there for that short recording. Wow.
Doesn't believe in undermodulation, does she?
No.
Some are very loud. It's incredible, the volume of these recordings.
Yeah.
They're all incredible.
Yeah, I mean that's the avian list. I can imagine the insect list is even longer than that.
Yeah. Mm.
Because I mean, there's an absolute dense wall of sound there when it comes to the insects, by the looks of things.
Mm. So we're doing lots of Peru tonight then, for a change.
Well, we like to get around, eh? I mean,
Yeah. Mm.
can't complain. So next up then, Chris, would you like to introduce your recording for us, please?
Okay, thanks. Well, I think the first one, I can't really see it on my screen, but I think this is
Black woodpecker.
Black woodpecker, yes. So somebody mentioned black woodpeckers the other day. This is one of my, I like woodpeckers, okay? Make no bones about it. And the black woodpecker is the biggest, amongst the biggest in the world, and it's certainly the biggest in Europe. And its presence is just so strong. This is a bird, it's jet black, it's got a beautiful red crown, and it just goes out there. It yells when it's on the tree, it yells when it's flying. It doesn't care about anybody else, it just makes its presence felt.
Bit of a hooligan then, is it?
I don't know. Jays are the hooligans. This guy's a bit more refined about it than the
Okay,
Jay.
right. Okay, here we go.
So that was one of my favorites. I really like black woodpeckers.
That was lovely.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Very
brilliant.
nice.
And they dig very big holes, and they make the nesting holes for tengmalm's owl and pygmy owls, which take over when the woodpeckers have left. It's a good story.
It's quite green woodpecker-esque in places, Chris, that to my ear.
It is, Mark. It is, and I'm
Confuse it?
glad you say that, because I reckon you've got better ears than I have. But
No.
sometimes I hear it in the forest, especially in a distant, and you heard there was a distant bird there that was then answered by another one, by the one that was close to me. And I sometimes really have to sit and concentrate and think, was that a green or was that a black?
And is that are those the two main calls, Chris, or does it have a wider kind of?
So there was three
repertoire?
calls in there. The one that was a clear sound is sort of a territorial call. The others are advertising calls, but that last one, the long call at the end, they call when they fly, and I don't know why. I don't know whether this is a territorial thing. Look out, guys! I'm here. I'm coming. Get out of my way. I don't know. I can't account for that one.
The first one, the that's a bit like a green woodpecker. I've heard that described as song. Do you think that's song?
I mean, it sounds like an advertising call, doesn't it? I get a little bit confused between what is a song and a call for non-passerines, but I would say it's an advertising call, advertising song. That's a human difference we put on that. Any other thoughts? Where's Jeff? Is he there? Yes, Jeff's still there.
Yeah,
Jeff's
that was
still
me
there.
What would you say, Jeff? You and I have talked about.
Well, I like to use the term
calls.
song even for non-passerine birds, really, because I think it gives more value to it. Which is and
Well, that's true. Actually, it's a richer title, isn't it? Yeah.
There's an element of performance, whereas that one, I mean, it might be an advertising call, but there's not a lot of performance to it.
Yeah.
And the flight call, as you say, I think that's one of the most gorgeous sounds to be heard in European woods. The tremolo sort of thing. Yeah.
And that last one, I got the wings in because it flew right over my head, and I was holding a parabola.
Yeah, cracking.
Just as a matter of interest, Chris, what time of day are we talking about, roughly speaking?
I cannot remember the first one because that was some time ago. But the second one must have been round about 9 o'clock because I'd stopped for my breakfast.
Okay, right.
And this thing interrupted my breakfast. I remember that, and then decided it was a good interruption afterwards. But you can hear them call. I mean, they're like, I wouldn't say there's a particular time of day. I mean, from dawn till 10:30, 11, like most others, is always a good time.
It's just that.
And again at dusk.
It's just that sort of by comparison to the earlier recordings, that the forest as a whole seems to be so much quieter.
Well, and I was going to ask when we were having the woodpecker discussion earlier on, I get the impression that the woodpeckers start up early. My nicest woodpecker recordings are February, early March, when there might be a missel thrush or some song thrushes already singing. But I'm talking about being at 1,000 meters in a Swiss mountain here. But the woodpeckers are always active. The woodpeckers for me mark the beginning of spring.
Okay.
So that's probably why it was a quiet background.
Okay, fair enough. Right.
I think that's fairly true of woodpeckers in general. They usually start, like you say, February time, and certainly, as I say, up in the northeast, up in the Latvia, Lithuania, that area, and Poland. I don't know about Poland, but I know that the woodpeckers are sort of an earlier starting, early March time when it's pretty damn cold. But I think there's a chance somebody I think once did say that one of the reasons might be is that on especially obviously deciduous woods, the sound will travel further because it's the wood is drier, there's not as much sap in it, and it sort of echoes more, and there's fewer leaves.
I was going to say, I would imagine there's also less understory.
So it actually,
and there's less moisture in the air as well. So things I love that period, that transition from winter to spring, because the air is clear and the sounds carry so beautifully in it.
I think the important thing there is lower temperature, isn't it? Sound transmission in lower temperature is much better. Denser air.
Yeah, it certainly. Well, we unfortunately we still have lots of moisture in our air when it's. But I think the wood has got less water moisture in it as well, of course, because the sap's not rising, and so you've got drier wood, I suppose, as well. Presently, I don't know, but that's one of the comments that somebody once made.
Yeah, could be, could well be.
Are they mostly in coniferous forest or broadleafed forest?
A mixture of both, actually. Mixture of both.
So it's not the leaf structure that necessarily dampens the sound, or otherwise. Okay.
No.
Chris, you want to say something about the next one? Changing shift.
Changing shifts, yeah. So this was a submission that I made to the Sound of the Year competition last year, under the heading endangered sounds, or sounds in danger, or something like that. And this is at about 11 or 1,300 meters altitude. So it's subalpine coniferous forest, and this is right at the boundary between sort of the Bare Alps and the forest. And of course, this is at the boundary. This is at the delicate boundary for climate change. As things get hotter, these forests are really suffering. Especially with bark beetle these days. It's a real changing habitat. And this is dawn in a fairly open forest, because I say we're at the alpine boundary, a fairly open forest. And I called it changing shifts because it starts with a rather hysterical cuckoo that's got a hiccup. Clive, I don't know, maybe it's the one you sponsored and ended up here. And a tawny owl, which I call night shift. I call cuckoo's day shift. I call tawny owl's night shift. And a European robin then picks up. The ones with the big eyes are always the ones that seem to start calling first. And I call that a day shift. But then a woodcock starts appearing. A woodcock flies from left to right in the sound field. And I know it's crepuscular, but I call it a night shift bird. So I put this in and discussed it a little. And right at the end, you'll hear the sound of an aircraft approaching, I think from the left-hand side. And for me, that's symbolic of the problem of climate change. And it's almost as though it's chasing after the woodpecker, after the woodcock. So I called it changing shifts, and it's just a sound scene that, how long have we got with a scene like this? Go ahead, Hans.
Okay, here we go.
So there we go. I was going to try and edit the aircraft out of it, and then I thought, well, no, actually, this is part of the story, isn't it?
That was brilliant.
Yeah. Actually, what kit you using, Chris?
That was probably made with my homemade SAS and a couple of Clippy mics or Brady mics. I can't remember now, and a simple LS11 recorder.
Right.
That I can leave out. But it's just a nice quiet place that I know up in the mountains.
No, in fact, what I was thinking is there's a bit more low frequency content in your few there than we had before, but that might be just people filtering the low frequency.
Yeah, well, I mean, also it could be the resonance from the SAS. I've got a homemade SAS kit that I made myself out of plywood and foam, you know. So it could be some resonance in the equipment. I'm not sure.
I thought the Broading woodcock sounded grumpier than normal. It didn't. I don't know if the ones we get around don't usually have that. It's not quite as croaky almost. I know it's the frog soul, but it was. I love that though. That was the way it flew through the picture. It was superb. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah. It's pretty typical of our woodcocks. Maybe they're all grumpy.
Yeah.
They take after me when I'm there.
What, so you got a cuckoo with a hiccup and a woodcock with a sore throat?
Love it. That was brilliant. Really good.
That was really nice. Yes. Right. Next one, Chris.
Which one is this? I can't see
deer.
the title. Okay, yeah. So this is rutting red deer, which is one of my scarier experiences when I go out after red deer and during the rut. It's still dark, they're roaring away, and I ask myself, should I really be out here on my own with a 300-400 kilo animal boosted up with testosterone with very sharp antlers on its head? But the sounds are great. So there's two clips here of that.
Well, they can't climb trees, Chris.
Neither can I.
Okay, right. Here we go.
So that's why it scares the hell out of me when I do things like that.
Yeah, it sounds like you're right in the middle of the herd there, Chris.
Well, I mean, it's dark. They're in the forest, and when the rut is on, they actually wear tracks. They're walking around continuously, and they wear new trails through the forest where they're walking. And I tend to stand on one side of those trails than with a handy tree to duck behind. But you can't really see too much of what's going on. But all of those were taken with a handheld parabola. Interestingly, I heard a deep bark one morning last week. For the first time in my life, I heard the sound of red deer outside the rutting season. These are sounds that are I only hear in September, October, but just the middle of last week, I was out early one morning in the dark, and I heard this deep bark. And I thought at first it was a roe deer, and I thought, no, it's far too deep. It's far too big for a roe deer. And I got 2 or 3 other recordings of it, and I'm convinced it was a red deer, but I never saw anything. It was too dark.
I have to say, Chris, that I've had this experience with elk here in northern Arizona. They look almost identical to red deer, but they bugle, so it's not that barking thing. But
Yeah.
out of the autumn mating season, I recorded a series of really beautiful high-pitched barks, individual barks, quite widely spaced, and it turned out that these are the elk cows, the females. They do these alarm barks.
Right. Yeah.
And that was news to me, and I'm just sorry I didn't have time to put that together for this, because it just follows on from what you were saying. Yeah.
It's almost certainly the female, because on Isla a few years ago, I've got a recording of a red deer sort of with that sort of grunt, and that was it was the female alarming. What it was alarming, I have no idea, because it was the recording was the middle of the field and I was nowhere near it. But
it could have experience. Yeah,
could have had. I think there was a young one nearby, and it might have been. It may be something that it might be sort of a call that they make to the young to sort of let them know they're coming to be, because when they're really young, they leave them, don't they? And
yes,
go back to them. And it might be that they're sort of, here I am, get ready, sort of, It might be sort of something like that. Might not be an alarm at all. It might be just we're putting that interpretation on it.
Yes, right.
Well, I'm never too sure what that roe deer bark is. I mean, roe deer are another one that always make me jump. They seem to stand as still as anything, and then wait until I'm 30 or 40 meters away and then go whoa like this, and I can't focus on my equipment because I'm shaking so much. Okay, now you've heard all about my coyotes. Move on to the next one.
Right, next one.
Okay, so this is a completely different environment, completely different forest now, in Sabah, in Borneo. And these are cicadas at dusk. I started my career in Southeast Asia, and these dusk cicadas always bring back a rich, exotic feeling to me. And it seems like it's the biggest ones that sit on the tree and they wobble their abdomen, so the sound gets attenuated. It's a hell of a racket, but it's sounds that mean a lot to me. Go ahead, Hans.
Right, thanks for that, Chris. Here we go. Oh, that's very nice.
So I realized when that started, I did a rather poor introduction to it, because there are frogs in there as well, as you probably got the croaking sounds of the frogs and the whoop, the occasional whoop like that. Those are frogs. Don't ask me names.
Oh, okay.
But everything else in there was insects,
Cicadas.
with cicadas.
No, I particularly like the whooping frog. Just sounds really interesting.
Well, there are people who can put names to those, but I'm not one of them, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, hopefully there might be someone out there in YouTube land who knows what they are. Right. Ian, you're up next.
Okay. This isn't exactly forest, but I think I sent it down as saying unusual for me. Fieldfare are a winter visiting thrush. Few do breed occasionally, but not very often. And this was last Monday morning. One of my places I go to frequently. And it just a single, because in winter we get flocks of fieldfare and redwing that come over from Scandinavia, Iceland and wherever, from the redwing point of view. But this was just one sat on the top of a tree making this noise. Now, if you've heard them singing, in inverted commas, in Europe, they're not the most thrush-like singers. They're not, certainly not on a par with the blackbirds and the song thrushes. But this is an unusual call, certainly for me anyway. Just thought I'd put it in.
Okay, thank you very much.
Not a lot to say about it, really.
Good stuff. No, Ian, there is. Those clear whistles, are those also the fieldfares? I mean, the chack sounds.
No,
the clear whistles were
song thrush.
Song thrushes in the background.
Yeah.
I've often been looking for something I could call a song out of a fieldfare, but it's these shack noises that seem to be the song, right?
Yeah, I think. Well, I've actually got one. I was stood on in Germany. I was stood on a car park one morning, just as I was getting into the car, and there was one, and singing. I was tempted to put it down as a comparison to this because it, and I recorded it until this rather loud woof came through my headphones, and I have no idea where that dog was, but by God, I left the place quickly. But talking of being scared of things, but that was a different song. This is more the call you hear when the fieldfare is sort of moving as a flock. You tend to hear that call when they're flying around, but this was sat on top of a tree on its own. Um, so it's they're really strange actually, because when you do nutmeg, you probably know the red-winged seep call. Well, you can get those all night long sometimes. Very few fieldfare do you get calling while you're flying over. Yet in the daytime, you hear a lot more fieldfare than you do redwing when they're flying around. But that is, the unusual thing about that call was it was sat on top of a tree making this call, which call it a song, I don't know. Back to what Jeff said, really.
Mm. Well, I spent some time in the Lofoten Islands in northern Norway, where I made recordings in springtime, in March, April, and it was the same noises that I heard.
Right, okay. Well, there you go.
Noises. I thought, well, at last I'm going to find a fieldfare song, and it was the same chack chack type of sounds.
Well, there you go. It may well be, but you know that it's the thing you've got to be very careful of in Britain. I don't know about you over there, but you can sometimes hear that call at this time of year, and it's actually ring ouzel. They're actually usually having a scrap or fighting. If you get the migrating ones that are moving through, make a call that's so similar to that, it's ridiculous. And quite often you get the confusion. Whereas the ring ouzel is obviously the really sort of distant and evocative moorland call song. Whereas they also make this sort of call as well. So there's, that is also, this was definitely 100% a fieldfare.
Yeah.
You can't, this time of year it is, so you get the ring ouzels coming into the country at the same time as the fieldfare are leaving the country, and you get this sort of crossover of a very similar call being made. But
I would say that the fieldfare song is more the twittery stuff they do. I don't know if you've ever heard.
Yeah, that's what I heard. That's what I thought. Yeah,
they do that communally as they're moving back through Britain towards Scandinavia or wherever. But what I've heard over in Poland and Estonia and elsewhere, when they're kind of singing at dawn, is just extended twittering. And
yes.
I mean, if you think of Blackbird, it has a two-part song. It has the full sort of fluty motif and then twitter ending. If you look at ring ouzel, you've got the whistle part, and if they're doing the full song, it's interspersed with a burst of twittering afterwards. If you look at redwing, they have the major motif, and it ends in a twitter, and sometimes they just do long extended twitter. And I figure that the fieldfares, they're more of a colonial species, so they don't have that loud whistle part to the song. They just do the twitter.
So, yeah. It's interesting though that what Chris was saying, that when he was in northern Norway, that this was what he heard. It's interesting that.
Yeah.
That's an interesting analysis, Jeff. I've got quite a lot of ring ouzel songs and calls. I must go back and have a listen to those again, I think, from what you said. Thanks.
You're a lucky man, having lots of ring ouzels.
Do you know how far you have to climb to get a ring ouzel?
Yeah, I'd have to not only have to climb, I'd have to travel quite a long way, unfortunately. Yeah. Lovely, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that. Right, Andy, you're up next.
Ooh, yay. So all three of these tracks are from my trip to Costa Rica in December. And actually, they're all from the first couple of days that we were there. The first one is coming out of towards the tail end of astronomical twilight. So, overnight there was just a long, soothing chorus of different insects, but sort of working their way up from the silence were two owls. The first of which I think is a mottled owl. I'm not entirely certain on that. But after it has its thing, a spectacled owl comes in, and it keeps singing closer and closer and closer. Doesn't get terribly close, but it does eventually decide it's had enough and it flies off. This is just overlooking a stagnant pool in the Children's Eternal Forest, cloud forest above Monteverde. There was a frog researcher that was there that had thought he had heard some Peralta frogs, I believe they're called, and asked me if I could set my mics up there overnight for a few nights. We heard some, not a whole lot, but it was pretty fertile for birds. So we can go ahead and play.
Okay, here we go. Thank you very much, Andy.
And this is why it's very vital to check your notes before you speak, because this was not the recording with the spectacled owl in it.
Oh, it's very nice though.
Well, it was a great recording anyway.
Yeah.
Did I put the wrong one up? I'm sure you said hoots.
No,
Okay.
there are two recordings from this location that are
Okay.
very similar. It's just different owls, and I forgot which one I had sent you.
Okay, no, that's fine, not a problem. I did pressurize you, well, coerce you into supplying a recording, so
Yeah.
I'll take the
What was
blame
the owl
for that.
dominated that then?
I'm sorry?
What was the owl that dominated that recording?
I believe that's a mottled owl.
Mottled owl.
I'm not entirely sure. This is my first time to Central America, and I don't know the birds at all, so I'm just sort of
I can't-
going on what hints I have from various apps and people.
That works for me. Thanks.
So this next one, I'm hoping that someone else who has visited Central America might be able to recognize a voice in there for me. So there are two singers. One is a buff-rumped warbler. It was really the one that dominates most of the recording. Spends half of his time just chatting, chat, 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 chat. But then he gets in a couple of good songs towards the end. But there's another one. There's another voice in there that I think is a wren of some sort. But I'm really not sure what wren. None of the identification apps even recognize it as being a bird. And the closest sounds that I've found in the Macaulay library are actually pretty far from it. But it sounds like one of those things that, you know, is probably really common and I just don't know it, and just requires someone who says, oh, I've heard that before. And so it basically, it's the one that goes diddly 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 diddly, and then you'll understand what I'm saying when you hear it.
Okay, you sure that sounded like a ringtone almost? So you sure it wasn't a mobile phone?
It could.
Right, here we go.
So this is the buff-rumped warbler right now. And that's my mystery fellow. So in the stereo version of this recording, it could almost sound like it's the same individual because of the timing, but they're actually on the original quad. They're spaced apart, and they do stomp on each other later on in the recording. But if anyone has any ideas, I would love to know.
Yeah, I don't think we got anybody who's on tonight who knows much about sort of.
Now, if I said it was from Peru,
we do have a member in Costa Rica.
Ooh,
And there's a lot of species in Costa Rica, isn't there?
Yeah, it's like
Yes.
680 or something. Yeah.
But like you say, you would have thought that's a pretty sort of.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, it's fairly standout. Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not, it's not as though it could be. I mean, I don't know.
yeah. But if you run it through Merlin or BirdNet or Turpity, they don't even recognize that there's a sound there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not. So it's not a North American warbler of any sort. Then.
No, not at all.
Right.
So this next recording I just like because it's a lot of fun. It's from the middle of the dawn chorus. I think sunrise is like 5 minutes after this recording ends. And so it starts off with a gray-breasted wood wren. There are Chlorospingus in there. Orcacious wren, tufted flycatcher, a scaly-throated foliage gleaner, which is, I think, the best name ever for a bird. Possibly a plain xenops, but the hero is right in the middle as a song wren. that decided to sing really close to the mics, and it's just got this wonderful clockwork sound to it that just, it didn't feel real when the first time I heard it.
Okay, we look forward to it. Let's listen to that. Yeah, it almost sounds like a cuckoo clock towards the end there.
Yeah, he's very, very mechanical.
Yeah, I love that sort of demonstrates, it really demonstrates so well the vocal kind of mechanism of avian species. Just um, almost sounds like two birds actually,
Yeah,
at the same time.
yeah.
Voice.
I have a real fascination with birds that are more, I don't want to say noisy, but they're less melodic. In up here in the Northwest in North America, we have a marsh wren, which it just sounds like it's being played off of the worst synthesizer you can imagine. And it's just it's just very mechanical and buzzy and clicky and constantly changing. And whenever I hear something that doesn't feel organic, like a more melodic bird, it almost always ends up being a wren. So I was quite taken with this.
What was the sort of low frequency creaky sound from about the middle third, just past the middle third? Is that a frog or is it?
There were some close flybys. I'm not
If you
sure if
look
that.
at the sonogram, it's the
Sorry.
low frequency part.
We're about here,
From about halfway through,
halfway through. Okay.
just before halfway through. Yeah, there.
Okay.
There's a
Oh, that's the song wren.
really.
Yeah, yeah. This frequency spectrum looks like it's accentuated for the high end. So yeah, the song wren goes down to about 700 hertz. Everything under that is lower than 700 hertz.
And what size is the bird? Wren size.
Yeah, it's wren size. Yeah, it's a slightly larger than a typical wren, but yeah, pretty small.
That's really low frequency for a bird of that size.
Yeah.
It made me think of something else. I was going to ask you, Jeff, if you could Does it remind you of something? It's almost like a golden oriole type bit in it. I don't know.
The high part. Right.
Well, there's sort of the flutiness to it. It reminded me of something, but Lord, if I can think what it is. You just play it again, that bit, please.
Just that section there. Okay.
Yeah. For those there, from there.
Yeah.
That. Trying to think what that is.
I mean, I could be wrong. I barely know the birds in Costa Rica at all.
What is going on there? There's two parts. So there's and then there's the.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like a duet, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Is
it a single? Is it?
It's a single bird. Yeah.
Doing both parts.
Yeah.
But the syrinx would allow that though. But I understand the size of the bird. It's very unusual for it to have such a low frequency element to that. But it may well do. Sounds amazing, whatever it is.
I mean, the syncopation between the two different sounds does sound like it's the same. It's the same organism, but it is remarkable that they're so separate. And,
they're very close in time, but they're very definitely separated.
Yeah.
You have to zoom in really far in order to see it. For a little while, I thought maybe it was two birds that were just in the exact same direction and very close to one another. But after hearing other recordings of song wrens, I realized this is just one bird.
Yeah, no, I'm listening to one on eBird. I'll just stick the link on here. But yeah, no, it's spot on. I'm pretty sure it's it's remarkable. Just for the size of it, it really is.
Yeah.
Superb. Great recording.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, very nice indeed.
Thank you.
So is that sort of cuckoo clock, is that also part of its normal call as well?
It's its song, but
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Oh, very nice. Thank you very much, Andy. It was worth it.
Great.
I'm glad I hassled you.
I'm glad I sent stuff in late.
Thank you very much.
If we still have time after this, there are plenty more that I sent.
Yes, not a problem. Right, Jeff.
Oh, right. Sorry, guys. This is very short. It was just a last minute thing because we were talking about woodpeckers and Hans said that there hadn't been a lot sent in. So I sent in a black woodpecker. This is drumming though, so it complements what Chris played before. And I'll also give you yet another variation on the pronunciation of that eastern Polish forest. It's recorded in the Białowieża forest.
Okay.
That's how I learned to say it when I was over there. Well, I had several trips there about 20 years ago. And it was fantastic. I got a shock of my life when I heard one nearby. I think almost the first day I was over there in the Biebrzę marshes, actually. And then when I was in the forest, I was up one morning and there was one drumming in the distance. So from where I was recording river warblers. So I came back a couple of days later. And it was about 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was on a big oak in the middle of a alder swamp. And it was one of those opportunistic kind of things. I kind of just approached it as close as I could get. I didn't kind of go through the edge of the alder swamp. Well, you can't really unless you got waders on, and even then I would be scared. And set up and just recorded a bit. But yeah, it's very short if you want to play it.
Will do. Of course we're going to play it. Right, here we go.
think I had one of them outside digging a hole in the ground. That's fantastic. Yeah.
It's a pretty impressive sound, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's
heavy
great.
drum, that
Thanks.
one.
You wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of that beat, would you?
Thanks, Jeff. That just reinforces
brilliant.
what I said about this bird
Excellent.
asserting itself in the forest.
Yeah, you'd certainly get a headache.
It's great. Brilliant. I have recordings of black woodpeckers drumming, but nothing as close as that, nothing as clear as that. That's really very nice.
Was that parabolic or was it open?
Sorry, it's a MS 3040 on a tripod.
Wow, you must
And
have been pretty
the
close
view-
then.
Well, it's about 100 yards away.
Wow. That's some coin. Yeah,
Possibly
so-
a bit less, but you know, yeah, it wasn't that close.
So it's a big noise from a big bird.
Well,
I think
it,
it
it,
Yeah,
it found a
almost
good
carries
sounding
well.
drum, wasn't it? It found a good
Good tree, yeah.
tree to hit. Yeah, but none. That's what they do, isn't it? So
Exactly.
that wasn't rain then. That was just the dew that was
That's
going.
the dew dripping off the trees, yeah.
Wow.
Which bugged
Yeah, I
me
wanted-
at
I
the
wanted to
time, but I
ask
don't
how-
mind it now.
No.
Wanted to ask just how actually big are these? I mean, we have some big woodpeckers in the Americas, but they don't sound quite that heavy
Yeah.
or
He's
deadly.
a big woodpecker.
It's the size of a carrion crow, isn't it?
Mm.
I'm trying to think of you've got the what's it the one
It might be a bit smaller than a crow. I think I couldn't really say, but yeah,
I
I
would say so,
actually
yeah,
when they
probably
fly,
smaller in
Jeff, I
weight.
always think they look like a crow. They've got they
Oh, yeah.
fly very much like a crow. So you're probably right.
they're what they got here 33-inch wingspan. That's American
Yeah, that's
8 to 44 centimeters.
Yeah, 60, 70 centimeters possibly.
Yeah, 22 inches long, 55 half a meter long.
They must be our biggest woodpecker, surely European anyway.
Oh, definitely European.
yeah.
Yeah. But in America, you've got some big old things over there, haven't you?
Yeah, we've got the pileated woodpeckers, the biggest one in North America. There I think are two in South America that are even bigger, but I could be wrong.
And then, of course, there's the one that everybody goes and tries looking for, don't they? In Carolina, is it, or wherever it is?
Yeah.
The ivory bill.
Ivory bill.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really a million miles. I mean, maybe wingspan a bit less, but the actual length, it's not really too far off a carrion crow, to be honest. Not. It's definitely smaller, but it's not a million miles away.
Yeah.
But the wings are big, though, aren't they? They're bigger winged and they bounce through when they fly.
It's a very flappy flight as well, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it is.
Like a hoopoo.
Yeah.
They have sort of rounded wings and
Slightly bigger than your pileated.
Wow.
Slightly bigger.
Well, thank you very much for that, Jeff.
Love it.
It's an impressive sound. Right, and then next up is a recording that I've got here from August 2018. This was recorded in the riverine forest on the Okavango River, which is in the Panhandle area of the Okavango Delta in Botswana. So,
You're saving the best to the last then, Hans, are you?
well, I'm not so sure about that. We've heard some pretty impressive stuff tonight, so anyhow, here we go.
Lovely. Got some hippos there, Hans, if I'm not mistaken. Is
Yeah.
that it? Yeah. Yeah.
Hippos and cow, well, river cows and normal cows.
Yeah.
What else was there, Hans?
Let's start off with some red-billed spurfowl, and sort of overlaying a tropical bobo. And then there was a Senegal kukul, which is the old sort of blowing over the top of a bottle type call. And then the one that was going throughout, making quite a noise, is a white-browed robin chat. And then in the distance there was a yeah. And then in the distance we had an African fish eagle, ring-necked, or what used to be known as a Cape turtle dove. And then there's a tiny little bird that does all the sort of mechanical clicking, which is a grey Cameroptera. It's very sort of similar in size and sort of, you know, with a cocktail to our European wren. And then
it really is called the white-browed robin chat.
Yeah, it is. It's a lovely bird. Then obviously the hippopotamus, and then at the end there we have a grey go-away bird, which is a bit, the grey go-away bird is the one that's sort of a bit more incongruous in this whole sort of setup, and that's because it's more of a savanna bird. But the thing of it is, the Okavango Delta is unique in the world in the sense that it, due to, you know, some plate tectonic movement of very long time ago, the river has been redirected, so it actually empties out into the desert. So it doesn't actually empty out into the sea. So if you ever lost in northern Botswana, in the vicinity of the Okavango Delta, don't just follow a river and think, this will take me east to the sea, because or west to the sea rather. It ain't going to take you anywhere near the sea. But yeah, so you get this sort of border between the sort of tropical, subtropical riverine forest bird species mingling in with these more savanna species. So it's an interesting mix.
Tectonic shift caused that river. That's really interesting. And,
yeah.
Have you spent a lot of time around Hans? Obviously, just I guess it's sort of north of South Africa.
Yeah. Well, depends whether you count as a sort of a 5-year-old. As a youngster, we used to live there for 3 years. But my brother's based he's in Khansi, which is sort of southwest of Maun, which is on the southern end of the, or Maun as such is on the southern end of the Okavango Delta, sort of the gateway to the delta, as it were. His partner has a piece this is on their property on the sort of north side of the delta, on the panhandle end. It's a really nice sort of area, but like most of these sort of interesting wild places that we've been listening to tonight, it's a very troubled area in the sense that there's a lot of human-animal conflict. It's one of the few sort of permanent water sources in the area. So everyone uses it. The people doing their subsistence farming, the cattle, and the elephants also come down there, and the elephants will come from literally miles away. So there's a lot of problems. They have a lot of people get killed by elephants in this particular area, unfortunately.
Are the bushmen still there, or have they been already cleared out some time ago?
There are very few bushmen around at the moment. Very, very few. They have either sort of, I suppose, died out, if we could be as blunt as saying that, or alternatively they've just been very westernized.
I know about 10, 15 years ago they were all being moved into settlement camps, and it was a government policy basically.
Yeah.
I don't want to get political about it, but I mean, it was. I was just interested because I haven't heard since then. There was court battles, and at one point it seemed as though the Bushmen had won certain rights that the government were trying to deprive them of. But since then, I don't quite know what has happened.
I must say, I think it's something that's whether deliberate or otherwise, I don't know. But I think that whole court case business has kind of like faded away, or like I say, whether it was made to disappear or not, I'm not quite sure, because as you say, there were some parts that the government wasn't overly thrilled about. Yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't take away from that's a superb recording. I mean, that was just really captures the atmosphere of that sort of place. Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Right. Anybody
Great recording, Hans. That's another place I've had a lifetime ambition to visit and haven't. Has your brother got a guest cottage? Can we take a trip there from the society?
No, he doesn't. Unfortunately,
we just all pile into Axel's,
right, 4x4. Yeah, get him. By the time he reaches there, we should be able to catch up with him in 2 years' time.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Nice.
Have we got anybody interested in hearing if I get some of these other recordings from Andy, or is our time up?
Carry on.
Okay, let me.
I got to go, unfortunately, but
well, nice having you with us, Dave.
Yeah, it's been great to hear about some great recordings again. Well done, Hans, for setting it up.
Thank you very much.
And Axel, if you're listening, take care wherever you are.
Bye, Dave.
Bye, Dave. See you soon, mate.
Good night, Dave.
Bye.
I'm going to leave too. It's 10 o'clock at my end, so I'll say good night to everybody. But a great session. Really enjoyed this. Good discussions. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, some great
Good night to you,
recordings.
sir. Cheers, Chris.
Bye.
So
to the screen.
Yeah, Hans, if you're gonna play some, if you've downloaded them,
I've downloaded them. Which one do you want then?
There are two: the vernal frogs and the cheery sparrow, and elk on the move.
Right.
I figure since we were talking about elk and red deer earlier, might be nice to actually hear some.
Right. Your vernal frogs first or elk first? Your call.
Let's do the vernal frogs. Okay. So this is from the Olympic National Forest. A lot of people think of Pacific tree frogs, which are common throughout Western North America, as being marsh frogs. But they spend a lot of time on land, and they'll often go solo on land. And at least in Washington, they can be frequently found in the forest, where people refer to them as forest frogs, even though they are the same species of the Pacific tree frog. This is one little spot near the Queets River that I really like, where during the spring the frogs really get going. And this morning they were cycling back and forth, not on purpose, but they were cycling back and forth with a song sparrow that had decided to land nearby.
Right, let's listen to that.
And so up above, way up high and in the background, there were, oh, what are they called? It's the two kinglets. I forget what they're called. The yellow-crowned kinglet or golden-crowned kinglet and the ruby-crowned kinglet. And in Pacific wrens, it's impossible to get away from Pacific wrens. They're one of the most annoying yet beautiful sounding birds on the planet.
I do like the way the frogs sort of slowly peter out, and then one starts, and then suddenly they're all going again.
Yeah, the sort of communal chorus that they get everyone into, it feels like a conversation to me. Like they all get tired and they stop singing, and then someone's got to start it up again.
Yeah.
And it's whoever feels safe first, and it sounds like he's asking, "Hey, is anyone else there?" And someone else says, "Yeah." "Okay, good. I'm here too." And then they pick it up from there.
And off they go.
Yeah.
It's magic.
The next track, I think I may have played an excerpt from this in an earlier session. This is also from near the Queets River in the Olympic National Forest, actually Olympic National Park, sorry. And it's a place where a small elk herd migrates back and forth daily. The Olympic elk are the largest deer in the world outside of moose, I believe. And they're huge. They can be positively terrifying if you see one up close. But the male always leads the herd, or the alpha male always leads the herd, calling back behind him to encourage everyone else to follow him. You'll hear what sounds like rain. It's actually leaves. It was very dry in this autumn, but it was autumn, and so the leaves are just constantly falling from the upper story.
Okay, here we go.
So yeah, I forgot about the owl. I believe it's a northern saw-whet owl. I may be wrong about that. You could hear the occasional shuffling of the underbrush as the elk were walking through. Really right in the middle is where you hear most of it. Yeah, the forest floor is largely covered with ferns. And despite the size of the elk, they somehow still manage to remain hidden behind them.
Yeah, can imagine.
It's interesting that that call is like seeker deer make a sort of a high pitched, so
Yeah.
It's almost like a harmonic series, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it's fascinating when you get up close, when you're close to an elk, when it bugles, it doesn't sound pretty at all. It sounds like someone screeching. And it really is the way the reverberation in the forest carries the high notes that gives it its flute-like sound.
Yes.
Yeah. When they're in rut, when they're and males are challenging each other, you'll hear much more low grunting. They kind of have like this growl that they may start up with, this sort of, and then they burst into their bugle and scream.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Sorry to interrupt you, Ian. For those of the people who've been listening to us on YouTube, we'll take that elk bugle as the last recording of the evening. And as they say in the cartoons, that's all, folk. But please join us the next time round. Thank you very much.